There is a moment that happens to almost everyone who is raised in a religious tradition. A moment that comes quietly, usually alone, usually at night. A question rises up from somewhere you cannot locate. A question you were never supposed to ask out loud. What if this is not true? And in that moment, something remarkable happens. Fear. Not fear of the answer, fear of the question itself. Because somewhere, long before you could articulate it, you were taught that asking was dangerous. That doubt was the first step toward damnation. That the very act of wondering whether any of this was real was itself a sin. Today we are going to examine that fear, where it came from, who put it there, and why. Because here is the truth nobody told you when you were young enough to need it. A God who cannot survive your questions was never worth worshiping in the first place. Let us begin with the architecture of fear itself. Because the fear of questioning is not a natural human instinct. Children ask questions constantly. Why is the sky blue? Where do babies come from? What happens when we die? Why do bad things happen to good people? This is the default state of the human mind. Curious, probing, unsatisfied with surface answers. Something has to happen to a child to make them stop asking certain questions. And in religious upbringing, that something is deliberate. You were taught, directly or indirectly, that some questions were off limits, that asking why God allowed suffering, or why the Bible contradicted itself, or why prayer did not work the way you were promised, was not intellectual curiosity. It was rebellion. It was the influence of the enemy working on your heart. It was a sign that your faith was weak, or your heart was hardened, or you were being led astray. Think about what this actually teaches a developing mind. It teaches that the relationship with the divine is conditional on never examining it too closely. It teaches that love, real love, cannot withstand scrutiny. No human relationship operates this way. A marriage where one partner cannot be questioned, cannot be challenged, cannot survive an honest conversation, is not a healthy marriage. It is a relationship built on control. And yet this is exactly the relationship most religious institutions teach you to have with God. Believe without question. Doubt is dangerous. Certainty is holy. Now let us look at what the actual sacred texts say about questioning. Because here is something the institutions rarely tell you. The Bible itself is full of people who questioned God directly and were not punished for it. Job, in the oldest book of wisdom literature in the Hebrew Bible, loses everything. His children, his health, his wealth, and he does not respond with quiet submission. He argues with God for 37 chapters. He demands an explanation. He says, quite literally, that God has wronged him. And at the end of the book, God does not condemn Job for his questions. God condemns Job's friends, the ones who told him to stop questioning and simply accept his suffering as deserved. Abraham, called the father of faith in 3 major world religions, argues with God over the destruction of Sodom. He negotiates. He pushes back. He says, "Will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" This is not submission. This is negotiation with the divine. And Abraham is not punished for it. He is honored for it. Jacob, in one of the strangest passages in Genesis, physically wrestles with a divine being through the night. He will not let go until he receives a blessing. He is renamed Israel, which means one who struggles with God. The entire nation of Israel is named after a man who wrestled with the divine and refused to release his grip until he got an answer. The Psalms, the prayer book at the heart of 3 major religions, are filled with verses that would be condemned as blasphemy in most modern churches. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? Why do you hide your face from me? My God, why have you forsaken me? That last line spoken by the psalmist is the same line Jesus cries from the cross in the Gospel of Matthew. The dying Jesus, in his final moments, does not express calm, trusting submission. He asks the same desperate, doubting, abandoned question that every human being who has ever suffered has asked. Why have you left me? If Jesus himself, in the moment of his greatest suffering, was permitted to question God's absence, Why are you not permitted to ask the same question? The answer is simple. Because the institution that came after Jesus needed something he never demanded: unquestioning obedience. Now let us talk about why. Because this is where the real story emerges. An institution that depends on your continued participation, your tithes, your attendance, your obedience to its authority, cannot survive a population of people who think for themselves. If you are encouraged to question everything, including the institution itself, you might eventually ask the most dangerous question of all. Why does this organization need my money? Why does this organization need my obedience? Why does this organization need me to believe that doubting them is the same as doubting God? The conflation of the institution with the divine is the single most important trick in the history of organized religion. If the church says it speaks for God, and you question the church, you are made to feel that you are questioning God. But the church is not God. The church is an organization run by human beings, with budgets, with political interests, with histories of corruption that we have documented across this entire channel. Questioning the church is not questioning the divine, it is questioning an institution. And institutions, unlike the divine, should always be questioned. This is true of governments, it is true of corporations, it is true of every human power structure that has ever existed. Why would religious institutions be the sole exception? Now let us talk about what real strength looks like. Because here is something counterintuitive that the mystics of every tradition understood, even when the institutions did not. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. Certainty is. Faith, in its deepest sense, is not the absence of doubt. It is the willingness to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. It is trust that does not require proof. Certainty, by contrast, closes the door on growth. It says, I already have all the answers. There is nothing left to learn, nothing left to question. The theologian Paul Tillich wrote that doubt is not the opposite of faith. It is an element of faith. The mystics who went deepest into every tradition, the ones we discussed in our previous episode, were not people who never doubted. They were people who doubted profoundly and kept searching anyway. St. John of the Cross wrote extensively about what he called the dark night of the soul, a period of profound spiritual doubt and abandonment that he considered not a failure of faith, but a necessary stage of spiritual growth. Mother Teresa, one of the most celebrated Catholic figures of the 20th century, revealed in private letters published after her death that she experienced decades of spiritual darkness. Doubt about the existence of God, doubt about the presence of Christ in her work, a profound and sustained spiritual crisis that she hid from the public for most of her life. If Mother Teresa, canonized as a saint, struggled with profound doubt for decades, why were you taught that your doubt made you unworthy? The answer is that the institution needed you to believe that doubt was shameful, so that you would hide it, suppress it, and continue showing up. If doubt had been normalized, the institution would have lost a powerful tool of control: shame. Truth does not require enforced silence. A genuine truth can withstand examination. It can withstand doubt. It can withstand the hardest questions you can throw at it. And it remains standing, because it was never built on the suppression of inquiry in the first place. It can withstand doubt. It can withstand the hardest questions you can throw at it, and it remains standing because it was never built on the suppression of inquiry in the first place. A God who requires you to stop thinking in order to keep believing is not describing reality. He is describing a story that cannot survive contact with a curious mind. And if your faith, your specific belief system, the one you were handed as a child, cannot survive your own honest questions, that tells you something important. Not that the sacred does not exist, but that the version of the sacred you were sold might not be the truth. It might be a story, constructed by human beings, for human purposes, wrapped in divine language to make it unquestionable. The actual sacred, whatever it ultimately is, whatever name it deserves, does not need that protection. It can stand in the light of every question you have ever been afraid to ask. And if it cannot, if the moment you ask a sincere question, the whole structure begins to crumble, then you have not lost your faith by asking. You have discovered that what you had was never faith to begin with. It was fear, wearing faith's clothing. You have been watching Unmasking the Gods. If you have ever been afraid to ask the question that has been sitting in the back of your mind for years, this is your permission. Ask it. Out loud if you need to. In silence if that is safer. But ask it. Because a God who cannot survive your questions was never worth worshiping in the first place, and the truth, whatever it turns out to be, was always going to be worth finding. Subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you want to unmask next, and remember, the gods were never what they told you, but what they actually are is worth everything.